right, guys, welcome back. This is Eric here with Guitarsenal. And today I thought what we would do is just a really good, solid, basic guitar primer for folks that are just getting into guitar and things like that. I made a video not long ago where I mentioned like top 5 tips for beginning guitarists, and there's some things I go through in that video that if you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video so you understand where I'm coming from in this video. We are going to get into some just very, very, very basic playing techniques in this video just to help get you started. And I'm going to teach you guys very much in the same way that I was taught by my dad and other folks that I was exposed to growing up as a musician. I grew up in a musician type family with, surrounded by people who played music. And the way that I was taught was to simplify my hand movements getting into guitar for the first time. So what we'll do is we'll go over a few things, and I'm going to just try to explain it in the best way that I possibly know how. So guitar playing is kind of grouped into 2 basic different hand movements. Okay, you've got what your left hand is doing, where you're having to hold the neck, press down the strings, and move your hands to make the chords and make the sounds. And the other aspect of guitar playing is done with the right hand. Whether you're using a plectrum or whether you're using your fingers to hit the strings, you have to vibrate these strings in order to make a signal go through the pickup and to go through the amp, obviously. So you have to hit the string somehow to make a sound out of the guitar. So, there's a lot of different things that go into different sounds you can get out of instruments, and that's not what this is about. This is about playing guitar, about just the basics. And these things apply whether you're talking about an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar. So these things can go hand in hand. We're going to start by, I guess I'm going to give you a reference note. I'm tuned up, I think. Here's a high E. Here's a low E. Here's an A. Okay. You can figure out the rest from there. I'm in 440. Okay, so if you have a tuner, tune to 440 and you should be right in there with me, close enough. Now, the way I was taught guitar right out the gate, and this is anytime I've ever taught guitar to people, new students that have never picked up a guitar before, the thing that we try to really stress is hand and eye coordination and really building like rhythm as well. And it can really be a simple thing, and it can, really benefit you to follow what I'm going to tell you. So the best way to think about it is finger positions you can use on the fretboard to start out with that are very, very simple. So in my mind, what's the easiest chord I can possibly think of you can make on a guitar? In my mind, the easiest chord is an A, because all I have to do is just lay my finger right there and you've got an A. All right, and that's what I was taught. That was the first chord on a guitar I ever learned, was an A. My dad said, put your hand here and just, and there you go, you've got an A chord. Okay, don't worry about what it means or how it relates to the rest of the guitar yet. What I want you to do is I want you to take that A chord and I want you to practice doing this. So what am I doing there? I'm hitting the chord and I'm kind of strumming a little bit and I'm muting the strings and I'm scraping, I'm using a little bit of rhythm. So what I'm doing there to make that kind of scraping sound is I'm muting the strings. So the first easiest things you can do on guitar is to play a chord and mute a chord. I'm playing it, I'm muting it. Both are rhythmic actions. Both are a musical action. If I take if I'm You're getting used to the rhythmic postures of playing guitar. So that's important. Integrate some rhythm into what you're doing, and that'll help you get used to the right hand technique. Whatever rhythm you want to use. Or find a tune in A and kind of riff along with that A. Now, the reason that that's an important movement is because there's a lot of things around there, like for instance, instead of me going, I can go, Not suggesting you try to learn that. I'm just saying that there are other things that can go along with that. It doesn't have to be like a pick scraping type of technique. The reason that I want to teach that A chord is because it's easy. It's literally just laying your finger across. You're not hitting the high E. If you hit it, it's going to sound like this. You don't want to hit that high F sharp. You just want to hit. So by learning the A, one, it's an easy chord, but you're also forcing yourself to make a deliberate effort to what am I doing? I'm only hitting those 4 strings. I'm not hitting the low E and I'm not hitting the high E. And I'm making a deliberate effort to not play that. So after a while, you'll learn to hold down the A, and you can just about even strum across that, and you're not going to hear that note in the chord. Now, why is a movement like that important? Because of bar chords. So I don't want to get off onto too much of a tangent, but the next thing that my dad taught me on guitar was to use bar chords. And basically you're changing the key of that A to a higher key, a higher chord, by simply just barring it. Now, some guitarists, use their ring finger and their index finger. So what did I do there? I took that same shape, pretend that this nut is where my finger would be. So I have a low A note, and I have my E, my A, and that is that's a C sharp. Yeah, C sharp. You don't need to know that yet. When you get into music theory, we'll discuss sort of the things that you really need to look at when it comes to transposing these bar chords to different parts on the neck. But briefly, I'll explain my reasoning. A guitar is a very easy instrument to play once you just gain a couple of basic bar chords. You can play a lot of different music. It may not be real complex, but it's where the basis of a lot of the other things are going to really come into play. Like you can't do this without making a bar chord. So basically when you make a bar chord, your finger basically becomes the nut. See, right now, my lowest strings, that's ugly sounding, but my lowest strings are what the nut produces. So when I make that A chord, I've got my low A and I'm holding down the chord. When I make a bar chord, I'm moving that root note. That is the root note, is A. That's how I know this is an A. Okay? That low root note gets transposed to a higher root note. So let's pretend that the nut is now here. Well, if we're moving this whole arrangement up to the 2nd fret, okay, well then I have to make another A chord down here. All right, that becomes a B. All right, those are 2 very important movements to get down as a guitarist, is learning just your basic bar chord. And look, this is assuming you've never picked up a guitar before. That's what this video is super just straight to the point for somebody that's never picked up a guitar. That's a very easy chord to make. You just lay your finger across there. Once you get that, work on that bar chord. Then walk it up. All right, now I'm in D. It's the same shape, but the root note is a D now. Now, this is something that we're going to get into in a later lesson, talking about root notes and talking about where the notes are on the neck. The guitar is a very, very easy instrument to play because of the way that all the chords transpose relevant to each other. Okay? If I have that shape, I'm using my pinky this time. I like to use my pinky, but you can also use your ring finger. Once I understand that chord shape and once I understand where the root notes are, all I have to do is, okay, if I want to make an E chord, let's just assume that I don't know how to make, this is an E chord by the way. Let's assume I don't know how to make that chord. but I want to make an E. Well, if I know that shape, and I know that this is an E, but the root note is on the A string, the second string, now I've got an E. I didn't even have to know how to make it on the lower register. I know because the root note's here. And that's something we'll go over a little bit more. I want some of you beginning guitarists to grasp that concept and to try to practice somewhat rhythmically. Find a song, find an AC/DC song or something in the key of A. If you go on Google and you look up songs in the key of A, okay, find you a rock song that's only got a couple of chords in it. Even if you don't know the other chords, don't worry about it. It's okay. All I want you to do is play along with the record. Put it up loud where it'll drown you out. Okay? But, you know, to where you can hear yourself. I want you to listen to the way that some of those rhythms are played in those tunes. And I want you to look up songs in A. I want you to listen to them. And I want you to just get used to that. And just get used to rhythmically playing the guitar, because a big part of guitar playing, or a lot of people don't really work on like rhythm techniques and trying to gain a natural rhythm. You know, there's only so much you're going to be able to do with your right hand, your left hand, if you don't have rhythm. So working on that rhythm is important. So try to integrate some rhythm into what you're doing. Don't just sit there and go, all right, well, this is an A chord. This is a B chord. This is a C chord. D chord. It's okay. You got to learn. There's a technical application to what you have to know to be able to do this. And then also, as a beginning guitarist, there's the other thing I want to teach you. When you're not playing guitar and you're just sitting around watching TV or whatever you're doing, let's just say you get frustrated, you don't want to play guitar that much for a moment, or you've strummed an A chord enough and you're just bored with it. I'm going to show you a finger exercise. One thing you can do is you're just sitting around. I want you to do this. Like this. Okay, take your hands, do that. Because what that's doing is you're building that muscle memory. Okay, because a lot of people, trust me, it'll help. So do this, build that muscle memory, get those fingers working. You know, and then once you get this down, then you go every other. You can go back and forth. Get those fingers working a little bit. Get them used to doing something, okay? Because what will happen is eventually I'll show some techniques where there's like basically what they call spider scales, and they don't really sound terribly musical, but they're meant to kind of challenge your brain and to work on your hand and eye coordination and working on the muscle memory. Guitar is a very muscle memory oriented instrument. I'm not going to say that piano and other instruments aren't, but the reason that guitar is so much, in my opinion, is because of the way the shapes transpose literally. If I take one shape and play it on a piano, those notes are what those notes are. They don't just transpose up and down the keyboard. Certain shapes might, but all of them don't. I can't just take an A chord on a piano and just simply change where I put it on the piano and make it a C chord. Not to my knowledge. I'm not a piano player, but very few instruments transpose as literally as the guitar. So if you're a new guitarist, work on that finger exercise, work on just kind of strumming that A chord, getting used to hitting the strings, or whatever you want to do with the right hand technique and the left hand technique. And then we'll work on some more chords, and then eventually we'll start working on some scales. But the most important thing is to just learn a single chord and apply it to a song that you know is in this key. Tune up to make sure you're in tune. Most songs you listen to are going to be tuned to 440. That's pretty much a standard. Play along with AC/DC or play along with whoever you like. There's plenty of songs out there that are in A. Listen for that A that's in the song. And also what you're doing is you're building your ear to listen. Like you're playing that A and you're hearing Brad Paisley play it, or you're hearing Billy Gibbons play it, or you're hearing Robert Cray play it, or you're hearing AC/DC play it, whatever. But you're training your ear, okay, that's A. And you're really picking up on the way that sounds. Eventually, you'll be able to pick apart, listening to songs, the difference between this A and this A okay? Each have a very different sound. And you'll be able to pick those out, especially when the chords are distorted and there's effects and weird things going on. You have to pick out what's going on. So that's my suggestion if you're a new guitarist. Take that A chord because it's just super simple. I mean, anybody can just lay their finger on a fretboard. Okay, that's really easy. And then, if you're feeling adventurous, you're feeling froggy, work that chord up. Now that stretch right there is going to be a little bit cumbersome for you. It's a weird stretch, especially in the lower register. When I'm going from an A to a B flat, that's a very cumbersome stretch. That's cumbersome to get to, especially with the ring finger. Now, a lot of the times when I make that chord, I will use my pinky finger. But I like the idea of using my pinky finger because it builds the strength of my pinky finger. And that way, when we get on to some of the more advanced guitar techniques, using that pinky finger will be building that strength is paramount for some of these, crazier things you might try to play and crazier chords. Like I can't play this chord without my pinky. Can't play that without my pinky. Can't play this without my pinky. It's a weird chord, right? Can't play this without my pinky. Now some guys can, whatever. Depending on your hand size, your hand strength, your dexterity, the position, the type of, the way you make the chord might be different. Now, look at it like this. If I take that chord, a bar chord, and look, if you don't want to try to isolate that note on the A string, the root note that's on the A string, which is this string, lay it all the way across if you have to. Take that A, lay it all the way across, take your ring finger, lay it down, just like that. But do not hit the low note. But you can hold it down if you want. And in fact, holding it down is good when you're beginning. I don't want to teach you improper fingering techniques when it comes to what you're playing on the guitar, but the more notes you're holding down, the more strength you're going to develop. And that's a big thing starting out. You're going to develop those calluses as you play more. And yes, holding down the strings is hard. It is not easy if you've never played guitar, especially in these lower registers. Those strings sometimes can be a little bit hard to hold down. So don't be discouraged. Hold it down, okay? Hold it tight. If you have to, anchor your thumb a little bit over the top of the neck to give yourself a little bit more stability, like you're holding onto a baseball bat or something, right? That's the whole way that works. Okay, so that'll give you something to work on. Give it a week. We may try to post a lesson every week. I don't know. It really just depends. And guys, this is a very, very super rudimentary lesson. But the reason I want to make it, this is how I got into playing guitar, is I was taught exactly this. I'm teaching exactly what I was taught when I first started playing guitar. And I picked up on it. I want to say that I understood the concept and I picked up on it pretty quick. I would say within a month, I had those bar chords down and I moved on to the E bar chords. So in the next video, that's what we will be getting into, is using bar chords on the lower register and the E register. Your two basic bar chords are your E type bar chords and your A bar chord. So that's what we'll work on next week, and I'll show you a couple of other chord shapes, but I want you to just get used to the rhythmic action of getting that right hand to cooperate. Even if you don't have the rhythm thing down just quite yet, if you just sit there, hold down the chord, just take the pick and just, if you have to, just sound it out. If you're not comfortable kind of, slapping on the guitar and do a little rhythm at first, don't do that. Do this instead. Take the pick and just get used to doing this instead. Just take the right hand and I want you to just pick. That's a good way too to work on isolating those strings, understanding that every note is an individual note. They make up a chord, yes, but I'm taking that A chord, which all I'm doing is laying my finger on it. Real simple. I'm not doing anything with the left hand, but I'm making the guitar sound like it's doing more because of the way that I'm picking it. So instead of going, instead of doing that, if you're feeling froggy and adventurous, work on just doing this. Notice with my right hand, I'm kind of muting a little bit. I'm muting those strings. Because if I don't, it's going to sound like this. I can't even do it. It's just, it goes against the way my brain works doing it. I like to, you know, for certain things, kind of mute them a little bit. Okay? And hold the pick between your index finger and your thumb. And look, don't get too much into, am I holding the pick right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? Just pick up the guitar and play an A chord. Real simple, okay? I know I've spent a lot of time talking about this, but I feel that it's important for people to understand. I mean, the guitar is a really simple instrument. A lot of people kind of overthink it, and a lot of people, I feel like, don't integrate like rhythm and right hand techniques. They're worried. They think that guitar playing is so much about the left hand, and it's really not. I mean, yeah, believe me, if you watch some guys like shredding and doing all this crazy stuff, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's also a lot in the right hand making that happen too. You can do a lot to make a lot of sounds come out of the guitar using your right hand more than you can your left hand. That's, you know, a lot of people think that it's all in the left hand, and it's really not. A guy that's good with picks and fingers can really get some crazy stuff going on. So take that A chord, play with it. I know it's simple. And look, if you're past this point and you're like, Eric, I know an A chord, that's dumb. Well, sorry, but I'm trying to start out on the just extreme basic end of the spectrum. So if this video helped, great, work on it for a while. We'll get a little bit more advanced as we go. We'll go over some more techniques, and we'll also talk a little bit of theory. That's something that I feel is important to integrate into your learning. I think that for starting out on guitar, it's best to just learn 5 or 6 chords, learn how to transpose them a little bit on the neck, and then we'll go into like circle of fifths, what makes this, that, how they relate to each other, how to communicate with other musicians. When you're just learning, that's not drastically important just yet. So that'll kind of get you straight to the point there, and we'll go over that in a future lesson. So guys, hopefully you found this interesting. If you're a beginning guitarist, maybe that'll point you in the right direction. That's how I learned. Take it for what you will. We'll go over some other techniques as we go. Thanks for watching today's video. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.